P. Diddy ringing in the new year with a jailhouse meltdown, at least according to some new reports. All this comes as the disgraced singer spends his first holiday season behind bars, and a judge rules one of his accusers can remain anonymous.
Sean Combs is a monster.
I want to speak about this now because I've witnessed everything.
I think Sean Combs can get away with anything.
He already knew what he wanted.
I could be your manager, just give me a chance.
I went to a lot of puffy parties. These were the parties that you needed exclusive access to get into.
If people fear him, they respect him.
Honestly, I didn't want to be around him unless there was cameras.
Nobody's shooting me. Nobody's shooting me. Nobody's shooting me.
When Puff was around, it was like, uh-oh, get it together or this could be over.
Ever since Diddy got locked up, he's been trying hard to get out on bail. Like, we're talking multiple attempts to get back to one of his fancy homes, especially this bougie apartment on the Upper East Side of New York. Just last month, his team went in for their third try, asking the judge to let him chill at home under house arrest instead of being stuck in jail. At first, his defense team wanted him to be on house arrest at his Star Island mansion in Miami. But get this, that's one of the places the feds raided earlier this year. So yeah, the judge wasn't about to let that slide. Instead, they suggested Diddy stay at this 3-bedroom apartment in New York if he got bail. But yo, the conditions are insane. He'd have to fork over $50 million just to get out, plus deal with guards watching him 24/7. 2 of them would literally live inside the apartment, and another would be stationed downstairs. And on top of that, no phones, no internet, nothing, unless it was strictly for legal stuff. Even visitors would have to be pre-approved, so only his lawyers and family could pull up.
Him bribing a hotel security worker, there was no criminal investigation. This was just a matter of personal embarrassment because he and the person in the video were in the midst of a 10-year relationship. That was difficult at times, that was toxic at times, but it was mutually so.
His lawyer, Mark Agnafilo, was out here saying there was a 0% chance of Diddy being violent and hyping up the bail package as super strict, like stricter than the actual jail. His legal team tried hard to paint him as a good dude in media too.
Why is that not a fair outcome?
What he did here is on a magnitude of unlike anybody else you could imagine. A week after these public searches were televised, he gave us his passport. His children gave us his passport. He then paid off the mortgage entirely on his Miami home, $18 million. It's instructive that he's gonna have a bail package ready so that if he was arrested, he would have something ready so that he could get out the next day and show the judge he's taking this very seriously, which he is, which is why 12 days ago, Chris, when we thought there's an indictment that may be coming, he flew to New York the very next day. And that's an extraordinary move for a defendant who's been under investigation that he's been aware of for at least 6 months. He has done everything somebody under investigation can do. I can't think of anything else that he could have done. He's fighting, he's innocent, and he's gonna be able to show it.
But guess what? The judge wasn't buying it and shut him down again. That's strike 3 for Diddy trying to make bail. Apparently, this whole situation hit Diddy hard. News outlets reported that spending the holidays behind bars was his breaking point. Word is he had a full-on meltdown in his cell and begged the guards to take him to the hospital. They said no, but he eventually calmed himself down by using some meditation techniques he's been practicing while locked up. Took him hours of deep breathing and focusing, but he finally got his head right again. This isn't even the first time people have questioned his mental state in there. When he first got to jail, they had him on watch. Basically, the guards kept a close eye on him to make sure he didn't hurt himself.
The story we're tracking, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after 2 judges denied his request for bail. This as a grand jury is expected to hear new testimony from workers very soon.
That was temporary though. Afterward, he spent a few weeks in a protective unit before getting moved to general population. And that's where this holiday meltdown reportedly went down. Now, here's where it gets messy. Another source is saying all of this is cap. They're claiming Diddy's holding it together just fine, even though he really missed his kids and family during Christmas. I mean, Diddy's all about the holidays, so it must have been tough for him. But no matter what's true, one thing's for sure. This whole case is still one big question mark, and Diddy is deep in the thick of it. When Diddy first got locked up, they had him on watch, and now over the holidays, the man's been straight up begging guards to take him to the hospital. People who've seen him are saying he's looking mad different. He's slimmed down, and his hair's going all gray. Clearly, all this pressure is hitting him hard. I mean, he probably thought he'd be out on bail by now, chilling at home. But nah, 3 judges already said, not today. They denied his bail every single time. He even tried to finesse house arrest with private security. but that didn't fly either. Now his team's pulled the plug on appealing, like they know it's game over on that front. Judges are saying he's not just a flight risk, but also that he might be out here trying to play puppet master with witnesses. And get this, prosecutors are claiming Diddy's been using other inmates' phone accounts to make sneaky calls. Allegedly, he's out here trying to intimidate folks. If that's true, bruh, it's not a good look. The feds are definitely on him, and you already know they're gonna bring that up when it's trial time. His defense, though, they're sticking to this whole everything was consensual narrative about those wild freak-offs. Like, they're gonna try to make it seem like the accusers are capping or switching up their stories. But the prosecutors, they're not buying it and think he's putting pressure on witnesses to change their tune before they even get to court. But this is only the beginning. The next thing in line that everyone is talking about now is the testimony, because it's about to be a movie. This is what everyone's been waiting for, because the victims are finally gonna step up and tell their side of the story. Here's where it gets messy. Diddy's defense team is coming hard. They're gonna dig into everything these people say, especially since some of these accusations go way back, like decades. Now, Diddy's lawyers, they've been moving kind of shady. They're out here trying to unmask some of the accusers who want to stay anonymous because they know if they make it public, it could scare people off from speaking out. Like, imagine trying to share your trauma and now the whole world knows your name. An important aspect of this story is going to be the strategy. The defense is going to jump on anything that doesn't add up. They're already calling out little inconsistencies like dates or locations that don't line up in interviews. You know how it goes. They'll be like, oh, if they got that wrong, they're lying about everything. And you know they're going to spin it like the victims are just chasing clout or a bag. One case that's blowing up is that Jane Doe situation from back in 2000, where a woman accused Diddy and JayZ. She was only 13 at the time. A judge just ruled she can stay anonymous, but if this goes to trial, she's gonna have to testify publicly.
Good morning. From the moment this case was filed, JayZ's legal team fought to get it dismissed, arguing that the woman accusing him must reveal her name. But this morning, a judge ruling she doesn't have to, at least for now. The judge also had some sharp words for its lawyers, calling them out for their aggressive filings and personal attacks, and asking them to tone it down. The judge writing in a 5-page brief that the Carter's lawyers' relentless filing of combative motions containing inflammatory language and ad hominem attacks is inappropriate, a waste of judicial resources, and a tactic unlikely to benefit his client. The court will not fast-track the judicial process merely because the counsel demands it.
And you already know the defense is going to be ready to pounce, even though they're not 100% sure what she'll say yet. Here's the thing, though. The feds are playing it smart. They're not going to parade every single victim out there. Nah, they're picking the strongest stories, probably 5 to 10 witnesses max. And let's be real, their star player is going to be Cassie. Why? Because they've got receipts. A whole decade of history, plus that infamous video. Now for the prosecutors, it's all about locking in those key details. Was there force, coercion, fraud? That's the line between trafficking and consensual stuff. They're drilling their witnesses to make sure their stories hit hard and stay solid, especially when Diddy's team comes in swinging. And Diddy's lawyers are sticking with the whole it was all consensual narrative. They're gonna lean heavy on the idea that these freak-offs weren't forced. But let's be real, the jury's gonna be looking at who holds up when the cross-examinations get wild. At the end of the day, the feds know this case hangs on the victim's testimony. Yeah, video evidence is great when you've got it, but most of this stuff went down behind closed doors. It's gonna come down to who can tell the most convincing story, and whether the jury believes it. And let's not forget the million-dollar question. Is Diddy himself going to take the stand? It's his choice as the defendant, but honestly, it's probably not a good idea. Why? Because of that damning 2016 video showing him a Cassie. If he testifies, the prosecution will shred him during cross-examination. Plus, once he's on the stand, the entire case could hinge on his testimony. It's a huge risk. If I were defending him, the strategy would be to focus on cross-examining the victims. That's the defense's best shot. And what about other celebrities? Are we going to see names like JayZ popping up in court? Well, it's possible. JayZ's name was mentioned in a recent filing from a woman who alleged he was involved in these freak-offs. If other high-profile names attended or participated in these events, their lawyers better be on standby. They could be called as witnesses.
Speaking of, in particular, Netflix docuseries that you've been working on, Diddy do it?
Right. Well, I'm surprised by the allegations, as surprised as everyone else is. Like, I didn't make the allegations, I didn't tell people to say these things. It comes out, I see it in the news like everyone else, but I did feel uncomfortable with the way you would present the idea of going to these projects.
To come party with me.
Yeah, and then that swayed me away from it. just that alone.
So you didn't realize
as much stuff was coming. Like when I seen today, it was allegations of 3 men that said he. And it's a long time, to be honest with you. Like when people don't remember being violated for 20 years, it makes me feel a little hard.
What are your thoughts on the allegations against JayZ?
That was interesting. When I was saying things, not knowing exactly what I was saying, but I was going, where's Jay at? He's mad quiet. Like while the Puffy thing was going on. But it's obvious now that his team was being made aware that he was in those allegations also.
Day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're gonna make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you.
The civil complaint has already mentioned Celebrity B alongside JayZ, so don't be surprised if more names start coming out. Where there's smoke, there's fire. It's safe to say that more celebrities could be dragged into this as witnesses or even defendants in civil suits. As for the timelines, the trial is currently set for May, less than a year after Diddy's September arrest. Do we think that date will stick? Probably. Here's why. Unless the prosecution files new charges, like trafficking of minors or witness tampering, Diddy's pushing for this trial to happen ASAP. He's in custody and sitting behind bars is a big motivator to move things along quickly. If Diddy were out on bail or house arrest, this could drag out until 2026. But being locked up has a way of speeding things up. And let's be real, it doesn't sound like Diddy's doing great in custody, so he likely wants this resolved as soon as possible. It's shaping up to be a strong case for the prosecution, but the defense isn't going to roll over either. In fact, it seems like Mark Agnifilo clocked in, and he's cooking up some heavy stuff for Diddy's defense. Here's why. Diddy just dropped a new motion in court, and everyone, by everyone I mean his crew, Justin, Quincy, and Christian, is praying this will finally turn the tide in his favor. Diddy's legal team is out here gambling big. His lawyer is taking some risky steps that could either save Diddy or backfire hard. Apparently, Diddy is claiming that some investigators in Virginia are leaking evidence to the feds. And honestly, people ain't buying it. Sounds like a classic stalling tactic to me, trying to run out the clock. But the feds are like, oh, no you don't. They clapped back with their own response, pushing for earlier pretrial disclosures. But here's what's wild. The prosecution wants to move up deadlines by 2 weeks, saying they need more time to prepare for trial. Meanwhile, Diddy's team is screaming, nah, we're already overwhelmed with all the evidence. But wait, weren't y'all the ones rushing to trial in the first place? Make it make sense. The defense is saying the prosecution hasn't even clarified who the victims are yet, which is making it impossible for them to prep properly. And while Diddy's lawyer is painting himself as the underdog, let's be real, this feels like a setup for an appeal if things don't go their way. Now there's this thing called an enterprise letter involved, which outlines the racketeering charges. The prosecution wants until March 7th to finalize it, while Diddy's camp is fighting to keep the February 1st deadline. Why? Because the pretrial motions, basically what evidence can or can't be used in court, are a huge deal. If the prosecution wastes time on evidence that gets thrown out, it could weaken their case. The defense is banking on this to slow things down and gain the upper hand. The defense wants the prosecution to reveal evidence and witnesses as they find them, but the prosecution is like, nah, we'll release everything when we're ready. It's a straight-up power play. The defense claims this withholding strategy is unfair, but the prosecution is calling out the hypocrisy. How are you rushing to trial and then complaining about not having enough time? The real question is whether Diddy's team is trying to stall so the prosecution runs out of time to build a solid case. It's looking like they're hoping the feds are so overwhelmed they'll slip up. Meanwhile, the prosecution is saying this timeline Diddy's pushing for isn't standard at all and could mess up their whole strategy. The clock is ticking, and both sides are feeling the heat. The prosecution just wrapped up discovery, which is basically evidence sharing, but Diddy's team is saying the mountain of paperwork is too much to handle. Still, they're the ones who wanted all this info in the first place. Whew, the irony. At the end of the day, this whole thing is like a high-stakes chess game, or maybe musical chairs. Every time a motion gets filed, someone's losing a seat. The question is, will Diddy's team be able to outmaneuver the prosecution, or is this just another delay tactic that'll backfire? Let us know what you think below in the comments section. And before you leave, make sure to check this video out too so you don't miss out on any important updates from the hip-hop world.